US-Iran conflict has been completely redrawn the map of the Middle East.
Breaking news in the Middle East and now escalating fears of an all-out war in the region.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
Well, I'm very clear that's what was wrong. I think we've had a civilizational link with Iran.
But we do have an ally, US.
We don't have an alliance. We were attacked through terrorist onslaught in Pahalgam. That we are fighting a war. We don't say that we have put an end to the war. Somebody else says the war has come to an end.
Just days ago, my administration successfully brokered a historic ceasefire to stop the escalating violence between India and Pakistan.
What do we see? We see a Pakistani field marshal going and having lunch at the White House and jollying up to the President of the United States of America. Is he a friend of Pakistan or is he a friend of India? The world order has collapsed. Was the UN anywhere when Iran was attacked? Did the UN say this attack?
I think it was complete silence.
Which means what? There's no world order left.
You have seen Rahul Gandhi, sir, grow. Is he a potential Prime Minister of the country?
Absolutely. And forget about me. I think those who are in power today, I mean, if you really touch them, they will tell you that our only concern and our fear and apprehension is that he is bound to spring to the post of Prime Minister of this country. They believe it.
We remember in May 2025, you praised the abrogation of Articles 370.
The manner in which it had been done was wrong because unconstitutional. The people who think that 370 was in some way keeping Kashmir away from integration with India was an overstated case. Troubles that we had to face in Jammu Kashmir were not because of 370, but they were despite 370.
Sir, my first question is, you share the blood of President Zakin Hussain Saab, a man who proved that Muslim could be conscience of secular India. Does that ever feel weighted on you?
Well, that's an interesting question. He was a unique person, and those of us who had a chance to see him from close quarters, we were very young, of course, had enormous to learn from him, both as a human being, as a teacher, and he saw himself, and he said that he was essentially a teacher. Even when he became president, his inaugural speech, he highlighted the fact that he was a teacher. All his life he was a teacher. So we sort of imbibed and learned a lot from him. I guess somewhere there's been a sort of a discrete pressure not to be seen ever to be doing something which is not good, which is not decent, and which is not fair. So kind of inherited a sort of a feel that you have to meet the bar, must always qualify for goodness. That has its own pressures, obviously, but it's less than the pressure. It's more of an inspiration.
Do you try to copy him?
No, I find it very difficult to copy him because he was in different mold and different world altogether. And I often think, what would he have done in present circumstances? The political and social life is so much more complex, I guess I could say. Although he had seen some very, very trying moments. I mean, he'd seen India through partition, and how we came out of partition and became an integrated country and integrated people. But the sort of divisiveness that we see in our lives today is something which is very difficult to imagine. In terms of what we saw of him in very good times. We saw him in the times that we associate with with Jawaharlal Nehru and in the succeeding generations of people who had grown up with Mahatma Gandhi and who imbibed Mahatma Gandhi's highest principles. So it's so difficult to think of what they would be in terms of life as we see today.
Great to hear that. So you went to St. Stephen, then Oxford, Supreme Court, Parliament. So you've been through all the elite institution of India and Britain talking about. At what point did you realize that none of these rooms were built for someone like you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we saw every dimension of response, reaction, participation in what you describe as elite institutions. They were elite in the sense that they were outstanding, that they were in pursuit of excellence, and they were very competitive. It was elite in that sense. But elite is also a word that is used in a pejorative way. Elite being away from common folk, from common people. I'm not sure that we ever thought any of them to be in that context, because wherever we went, no matter how competitive and how excellent the institution was, there were always some remarkable people, teachers that we encountered, who were always introducing the element of compatibility with commonness. So you didn't see yourself as being different from ordinary people, from many of those who couldn't make it to those institutions and had to make do without the best of those institutions. So there was never a sense of aloofness, there was never a sense of separateness. But of course there was a sense that we were lucky to be able to do and to be where we were.
So when your house was vandalized after sunrise over Ayodhya, in that moment standing outside and looking at the damage, what was actually going through your minds? Not the political view.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't angry. I was puzzled because it's a very peaceful place, Uttarakhand. And the place where we have a little cottage is a very calm place. We don't spend a lot of time there, but a few days periodically that we go there, we meet with the local people, and they're all very, very friendly and very sort of helpful. And therefore, I was completely puzzled why this should have happened. And then I hadn't been able to go there for a while. Local people came out and managed whatever had to be done. But when I did go, many days later, I suppose about 2 weeks later, when I did go, somebody approached me and said that these people who vandalized your house want to meet you. And I said, well, I have no problem. They can come and meet me, can have a cup of tea with me. I have no problem at all. So they were really worried about the cases that had been filed. There was a criminal case that had been filed, and some of them were facing charges, etc. So they all came to see me, and they were like local folk. One was a former army person, and I asked them, why did you do what you did? Have you read my book? And they all said, no, we haven't read your book. Somebody told us this. So I said, but should you not have read the book at least? And they said, well, we couldn't get hold of a copy of the book. So I said, well, I'll give you copies. Please read it and see whether you were justified or not. But why, nevertheless, why did you do it? And they said, well, we were told to protest a bit. And so we came up, and we thought that there would be an outside gate. So we would stop at the gate and great slogans. But unfortunately, there wasn't a gate, and your house was just on the road, and we were able to go right up to the outer veranda. And then there were some miscreants amongst us, and they threw something and lit a fire and tried to break the door down, etc. And I'm the one who actually brought water, and we doused the fire, etc. So I said, no, but it was a little more serious than that. Somebody fired shots into the bedroom window, and if someone had been inside, they could have got seriously injured. So he said, well, we are very sorry, we are very sorry. So I said, one promise, please. One promise is, would you ensure that this doesn't happen again if we are not here? Would you be good enough to look after it? And I'll make sure that those cases get withdrawn. We have no interest in harming you. And they sort of happily said so. And they said, can we take some photographs? And I said, yeah, you can take photographs, no problem. You can take photographs. So we had photographs taken, and I've never seen them since then.
Good. So, we remember in May 2025, you praised the abrogation of Articles 370, and the entire political ecosystem went shocking that you shared though. So, I was just curious about that. Was that an intellectual honesty of you, or you've been just waiting for past few years to share your opinion on that?
No, I see the point about Article 370, we must be very clear. There are different political points of view on Article 370. And the view that my party takes and took at the time when Article 370 was abrogated was very clear that the manner in which it had been done was wrong. It was unconstitutional. Of course, we can't argue about that ad nauseum, because the matter went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sort of justified it, but justified it just in terms of what had happened, but didn't go further to actually approve completely of the statehood being taken away. And on the assurance of the Solicitor General or Advocate General, whoever it was, on the assurance, they said, well, now that the statehood is going to be given back soon and there'll be elections, we need not look at this matter. So we were concerned about a commitment that we had made to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And we obviously Congress felt that so much of that commitment had been diluted in terms of the law, and that there was only a symbolic relevance of 370 left, symbolic relevance. But that symbolic relevance too could have been altered only properly, in the sense through the assembly of the J&K, and not when there was president's rule in J&K. So this is something that my party took a very clear ban. The people who think that 370 was in some way keeping Kashmir away from integration with India was an overstated case. Troubles that we had to face in Jammu and Kashmir were not because of 370, but they were despite 370. And obviously, as far as the troubles that we faced in Jammu and Kashmir were concerned, we are all on the same page. I mean, I went with Farooq Abdullah when I was Minister of State and External Affairs. I went to the Geneva Human Rights Commission to speak the language and speak for the cause of India, and to speak for the cause of India that included Jammu and Kashmir. So for anybody to say that there was some agenda that somehow went against the grain of what everybody wanted in the country, I think it's quite unfair.
Stunt. Good to know that. So you started your career as a special duty officer under Indira Gandhi ji.
As an OSD, officer on special duty.
Yeah, in 1981. So what does it actually does to a young man? Because you're being that close to that kind of power at that age.
Well, I don't know. It was it was awesome because we had access. I mean, very close access with the Prime Minister and the senior officers. I was the junior most in that place.
How old were you then?
Oh gosh, I must have been about 30. I must have been about 30, 31, etc. And the junior most, right? And in fact, people were still people who had taught me in college were still under secretaries, and I was made as a deputy secretary. But deputy secretary is pretty low down in the government hierarchy. and I sort of felt that I was constantly being told that deputy secretaries can get this, they can get a cooler, not an air conditioner. But if you're more than deputy secretary, then you can get, if you're a director, you can get an air conditioner, and you can get a white phone or a red phone, and a red passport or a white passport. All those rules were constantly being thrown at me. And I was a post-university teacher. I mean, I was teaching at Oxford when I came here. So for me, all those constraints and all those regulations and restrictions and the protocols that were involved were sort of quite cumbersome. But it was a wonderful experience. But I knew from the word go, I knew that it wasn't going to last long, because I didn't want a career in public life in those terms. I did want a career in law, and therefore I served whatever months I served there, and then quietly took leave and went out to practice in the Supreme Court.
So did you remember any special moment with Indira Gandhi ji?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, there were some wonderful moments. What I remember, of course, is Dr. The principal secretary at that time to Indira ji called me and talked to me about my future, and I was sort of thinking that, my God, how do I tell Dr. Alexander that I don't want to stay here all my life, etc. But they had a good conversation, and then I had to break it to him that I was intending to leave and go off and practice, etc. So he went and told Mrs. Gandhi that and said that, Salman doesn't want to stay. And she smiled and she said, I thought you wouldn't stay because I didn't have a bureaucratic sort of attitude in life. And I was, in a sense, a freewheeling, happy-go-lucky, freedom of intellect kind of lifestyle that I had imbibed at Oxford. I worked closely on several speeches with her, some international speeches, and her reactions and responses were really, really wonderful. I mean, the warmth with which she used to treat a young person was quite remarkable, really remarkable.
Okay. So India's foreign policy is often described as strategic autonomy, that we call. But you have served as External Affairs Minister of India. Is that philosophy, or it is just a polite way of indecision?
No, it's not indecision at all. I think you must be, you must take note of the fact that very, very consciously, in the beginning of our independent existence, our first Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru, reached out to what then became the NAM movement. It started off with the Bandung Conference, Afro-Asian unity, but then it finally merged into the NAM movement. A NAM movement at the time when there was Cold War and the world was split into blocks of the West and the East, etc., the Soviet bloc and the American NATO bloc, etc. We very consciously chose to stay away from it. And we possibly paid a price. We must have had benefits also ultimately, but I think we paid a price, and everybody believes that we paid a price.
In what terms?
Paid the price in the sense that we had to fight with our neighbors on our own. That nobody would pitch in for us because we were not part of NATO. We were not part of an American alliance. That when the Chinese attacked, somebody would have come to our aid and our help. And even when they did, we weren't interested in their help. We wanted to face China on our own. When several times that we had to fight with Pakistan, for instance, because of Pakistan's aggression. And then when Pakistan's attempt to switch over from military aggression to terrorist activity on the Indian side of the border, where did America step in? It didn't. So you might say that this is a price that we paid for our autonomy and our non-alignment, a price that we paid. But then on the other hand, we had some remarkable support from Russia, undoubtedly remarkable support from Russia. And I think that played a very crucial role in the 71 operations when Bangladesh was formed. So I think there was ethics in it. There was ideology and there was ethics. Um, and there was a combination of pragmatism and idealism that made our foreign policy. So it wasn't strategic autonomy of transactional freedom that we have today. Completely different. It was much deeper. When we supported Palestine, for instance, against what was to be a much larger force operating against the people of Gaza and Palestine, or when we supported the third world, we supported African freedom movements, etc. That was all at a considerable cost, because what would it lead to? It would lead to some kind of a dissonance with countries that could have supported us strongly. Economically, they could have supported us strongly. When we decided to go nuclear, for instance, at great reluctance, when we decided to go nuclear, we faced sanctions from the United States of America and all the allies of the United States of America. But that was a cost. That was a cost. We had to do it because we needed to protect our people. And we had neighbors who were preparing to go nuclear, etc. So if we hadn't gone nuclear, if we hadn't done something that we chose to do because we felt that was necessary in terms of the duty that we owed to our people, then we might not have suffered sanctions in those critical years, but we did suffer sanctions. And therefore, it was an ethical, moral, and strategic position that we took, which was a lot more than the strategic autonomy that's spoken of these days.
So you have written a foreign policy manifesto recently. So what exactly are you demanding, and whom are you demanding it from?
No, I see. Our biggest issue today within the country is that we have traditionally had a consensus on foreign policy. That we've always spoken with one voice. When we went to Geneva on the Human Rights Commission, Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the leader of the delegation. I was the deputy leader of the delegation, although I was a government minister and he was the leader of opposition. But we spoke in one voice. It wasn't exactly the same thing when we traveled, and I don't know why I was picked to travel in delegations after Operation Sindoor, that MPs, delegations, and other political leaders who were sent. It wasn't the same thing that we had been able to do when Atalji and I were together in Geneva. That was a genuine resonance and one voice, one conscience, one voice for the people. But when we went for the Operation Sindoor delegations, they were much more politically correct sort of statements that we had to make, because we had such severe differences at home. There wasn't consensus. Sadly, there wasn't consensus, although my party, the Congress party, and our leadership very clearly said that in a matter of when the country is under attack, and we are under attack from whoever, in the neighborhood or otherwise, we have to stand together, and therefore we will go an extra mile to support you. But we want some information. We want to be able to be to show that what is happening is right. When Galwan happened, that's all we expected. We expected the government to be a little more honest with us and transparent with us, even if it meant that they would share the secrets or what they thought was confidential with our top leadership, because our top leadership has been in government also. So, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. So the first thing that we seek is consensus. The second thing that we seek is that there has to be an ethical element in international relations. It can't be without ethics. The third is that we must have some consistency. Now, if we have to take a position on Ukraine and Russia, it must be consistent with the position that we take in our own neighborhood. If we take a position on Gaza, it should be consistent with what we do in our extended neighborhood, etc. So we want to be friends with the world. We don't want to take anybody out of our range of friendship. But we should have the strength and confidence to tell friends when they do something wrong. If you can't speak to your friend, then who can you speak to? This is something that we are very clear that this government's foreign policy doesn't show.
So you talked about Operation Sindoor. In June 2025, you were abroad, India, representing India on a diplomatic mission of Operation Sindoor. And people back then were attacking because you tweeted, is it so difficult to be patriotic? So what does patriotism actually mean to you, according to that?
What means to be patriotic is to be in conscience true to your country, true to your people, right? And
So why do you think people were attacking?
who was attacking me? There are some people who don't want to be true to this country. They will attack me. Of course, they will attack me. The point is that you want somebody to click heels and salute you. That's not possible. We are a democracy, and in a democracy, each one of us, meaning each of our parties, have very specific views about what is good for the country. Of course, we are careful about where to say this and how to say it. We have to be careful, because if you're a mixed gathering where people who may not necessarily be friendly with India, etc., then you have to be careful. You have to be careful with your words. But that doesn't mean that you become a mute spectator for anything that is happening. It's anything and everything that you become a mute spectator. Now, when you tell the truth, to the extent that you believe in your conscience that that truth is to be told, and somebody attacks you, then what is the answer? The answer is, it's difficult to be a patriot. It's difficult to be truthful and difficult to be honest, because people are unwilling to listen to the truth.
True that. So the US-Iran conflict has been completely redrawn on the map of the Middle East. What are your views on the war currently going on? Because India has taken a position of being neutral rather than seeking one side.
Well, I'm very clear that's what was wrong. I think we've had a civilizational link with Iran. I think there was some.
But we do have an ally in US.
We don't have an alliance. We are not allies of the US. Even the BJP doesn't have the courage to call itself an ally of the US.
But Modi ji,
we talk about being strategic partners, right?
Yes, strategic partners.
Not alliance, strategic partners. But what kind of strategic partners? When we are fighting a war and they announce that the war has come to an end, there are problems there. There are problems in this partnership, that we are fighting a war. We don't say that we have put an end to the war. Somebody else says the war has come to an end, right? And somebody else says that we couldn't have permitted them to carry on fighting, could boast our nuclear powers, etc. Who started the fight? We were attacked. We were attacked through a terrorist onslaught in Pahalgam. We were only responding by attacking the terrorist assets on the Pakistani side or beyond the line of control. We weren't even going into general battle with Pakistan, right? Now, of course, we had no choice but to say the objectives have been met, because somebody who claims to be a dear friend of ours announces to the world that the objectives have been met and the hostilities have come to an end. But even then, what was the subsequent period? The subsequent period, what do we see? We see a Pakistani field marshal going and having lunch at the White House and jollying up to the President of the United States of America. Is he a friend of Pakistan or is he a friend of India? Big questions. We want to ask these questions, right? And when we ask these questions, we are told that you're being anti-national. You're not being fair to the country. You are not being fair to the country if you don't ask these questions. And I'm not saying that break off with the United States of America, because the United States of America has been a good friend and we want good relations with the United States of America. But on what terms? That's the important thing. On what terms? Now, everybody in the world today thinks that dealing with the United States of America is very complex in the present regime, in the present administration. Understandable. They have their priorities. Their priorities are America first and make America great again and so on. I think we should respect those priorities, but we also seek a little bit of respect and a little bit of thoughtfulness and consideration for what India's concerns are. And all we expect this government to do is to communicate that. You are hearing statements about, what will Prime Minister Modi do during his meeting with President Trump, etc. That's what India expects. Everybody in India, including people who support Prime Minister Modi, they expect that Prime Minister Modi will speak up and convey this message to the President of the United States.
Cool. So what do you think about the war? Where is it going?
Well, I hope the war ends, because the war has become very costly, not just for United States and Iran, but it's become very costly for the rest of the world, and certainly to India. It's become extremely costly at a time when we needed our resources for a lot of things. The war has
Because more than 9 million of our workers work in Gulf countries.
Our workers in Gulf countries have been affected. Gulf countries' economies have been affected. Iran has been affected. Our fuel supply has been affected. Our supply chains are affected, etc. So all countries are affected across the globe, but some more, some less, etc. But certainly we are concerned about what is happening to us. So we do genuinely hope that the war, first the ceasefire and then the end of the war that's been announced now, we do hope that will hold and that something good will come out of it. But the world order has collapsed, and therefore the emergence of a new world order in which India must have a distinct and clear role is the agenda now. That's on the table. How we'll move forward for it is something that we need to work on.
So can you explain that, please, again?
There's no world order left. Have you seen the UN operating anywhere?
No.
Was the UN anywhere when Iran was attacked? Did the UN say this attack?
I think it was complete silence.
Which means what? The world order was based around the United Nations. Out of the Second World War, what emerged was the United Nations for a peaceful world and a world dedicated towards growth and development, and a world away from poverty and disease. That's what United Nations was for. And the United Nations has just disappeared because the world order has disappeared. So a new world order has to emerge. Now, either the United Nations has to be seen as reasserting itself, which can only be done by all the members of the United Nations, including India, participating in strengthening United Nations' role once again. And two, laying down what are the rules by which we will function. Can anybody go into any country, attack their leadership and destroy their leadership? Can this ever be done, even not even done during the Second World War or the First World War? But it's being done now in the first time. I mean, there were nuclear bombs dropped over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but nobody dropped them over Tokyo. Right? So there were some rules of the game that operated. Now those rules of the game are gone with what has happened recently. First what happened in Gaza, then what has happened with Iran. Those rules of the...
And now in Lebanon.
And now Lebanon is sort of a continuity of what has happened between Israel and Iran and America and Iran, etc. So where are the rules of a global order, etc.? Big question. And everybody accepts that the rule-based world order is in shambles and it has to be reconstructed, it has to be reassembled, and India must have a major role in it. But what is India doing? Is India just going to watch and let things happen? Or is India going to participate and play a dominant role? That's a big question.
Because our external affairs minister says we have to stay neutral because both of the parties, we don't have anything linked to both of the parties, be it Iran or be it US. Is it a sign of cowardice or neutral?
Well, I just think that it's very bad diplomacy, very, very bad diplomacy, that you don't have faith in your ability, you don't have faith in your cause, you don't have faith in your own convictions when you say this, that you want to stay out, remain neutral and stay out. See, a lot of countries have played the neutrality role in the past. I mean, the Nordic countries have. But, there are small countries, don't want to get involved in larger battles, etc. But India is calling itself Vishwaguru. The Vishwaguru is going to be neutral. Which teacher is ever neutral? A teacher is fair, but not neutral. I think this is a basic misunderstanding of the role that India has to play.
So, sir, you have seen Rahul Gandhi, sir, grow in his family. What do you think of him? Is he a potential prime minister of the country?
Well, of course, absolutely. Absolutely. And forget about me. I think those who are in power today, I mean, if you really touch them, they will tell you that our only concern and our fear and apprehension is that he is bound to spring to the post of prime minister of this country. They believe it. That's why they spend all their time attacking him and trying to undermine him. But they won't succeed. I think he is a remarkable mind. He's a remarkable person. And I think he's just historically destined to be in that high position. And he would do wonders with this country. As prime minister, he would do wonders for this country. Let's just hope that we see him in our lifetime.
So, what is that one thing of him that we don't see on camera?
No, you see a lot of camera, but you have to pick it up. You have to recognize it. You have to register, and you have to learn this is what he's doing. His conviction, clarity of conviction, and the strength of his conviction is what really matters. What really matters. And I think he combines some remarkable qualities of his uncle and remarkable qualities of his father, and he has some wonderful dimensions that have to do with what a modern Indian leader should be. And I think he's got the makings of all that. Wonderful, really wonderful.
But the opposition keep bullying him or keep his image.
Oh, you don't bully him. He doesn't get bullied. He doesn't get bullied, I can assure you. He doesn't get bullied.
Cool. So lastly, I would like to close this on what is the best piece of advice you have ever heard or received?
Best piece of advice. I had a very, very remarkable, wonderful relationship with Mr. Natwar Singh, and I used to spend a lot of time with Mr. Natwar Singh. I'm sorry that he's now no more. Erudite person, remarkable person, and he, in the time that he spent with the Congress leadership, I think he was a great asset to the Congress leadership, series of Congress leaders that he served. And he once advised me, and he advised me about how to deal with the Nehru family. He said two things to me, and I think those are fantastic things. He said, one, whatever they ever say to you, make sure that they don't then hear that from anyone else. Meaning, keep complete confidence, right? When somebody amongst them treats you with confidence and shares something with you, you must keep it to yourself. It must not go back as though it's being traveling and doing the rounds, etc., then coming back to them. And the other thing is, just be careful about one thing. Never go to them with a problem. Always go to them with a solution. They are solution-oriented people. They want you to give a solution. They don't want you to give the problems. And I think that served me very well.